Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Judith Smythe, Vice Chair of the Planning Committee, and the Chair, Gerald Vernon Jackson, has given his apologies. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Don't use the lift. Assemble by Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. To comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anybody who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk will need to sign out on their way when leaving the building. Limited public seating has been made available. However, this meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to watch remotely, if they wish. Everyone speaking via a microphone will be on camera, including those making deputations. The public seating area is not in view of the cameras used to webcast this meeting. Members of the press and public are permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. That means stating it at the time when, if you don't want to be recorded, you need to let me know clearly. Can everybody speaking use the microphones? The red light comes on, and remember to switch them off when they've finished. You're welcome to remind me if I forget. When voting, please can members keep their hands raised clearly until the number of votes have been stated. And then I will state whether or not the permission is granted, refused or deferred. So each agenda item will be presented in the following order, just so everybody is clear. The Officer's Planning Application presentation, which will be accompanied by PowerPoint presentation, any deputations, allowing up to 12 minutes in favour and 12 minutes objecting. That means if there are 3 people wanting to make a deputation, they have 4 minutes each. Members' questions and comments follow, and then we make a planning decision. Is that clear? Okay. We have one apology for absence from Ashgar Shah, Councillor Ashgar Shah, who has got a mechanic on his forecourt mending his car at this moment, and I hope will burst into the room very soon. He knows he cannot participate in any decision where he hasn't been here for the whole item. Are there any other apologies? Gerald Vernon Jackson, Chair of the Committee, Councillor, gives his apologies. Any others? No? I think we're all here. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, the first item of the agenda, as is customary, is to look at the minutes of the previous meeting. This is the meeting that was held on Wednesday, the 2nd of October. I'll just very quickly go through the pages if there are any amendments you want to be made or any important matters arising. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, before we start the meeting properly, I would like to do introductions around the room. I've introduced myself, Judith Smythe, elected councillor for St Jude Ward. Can I just go around the room? Mary?
Councillor Mary Vallely for Carsham and Wimmering.
Good morning, Chair. Chris Atwell, St Thomas Ward.
Councillor Hugh Mason, St Jude Ward.
Peter Candlish, Eastern and Craneswater.
Morning, Chair. Councillor Dorrington, Eastern and Craneswater.
Good morning, Matthew Cordy, Hilsey Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Derek North, Carsham and Wimmering.
Thank you very much. Councillor Simpson.
Councillor Russell Simpson, Hilsey Ward, reading for 43 Shadwell Road.
I'll start over here. Could I come to you, please?
Oliver Gooch in regards to 138 Cardiff Road.
Thank you. And in the back row? Good, welcome. Thank you.
Councillor
Councillor Dent.
Cotton Ward, observing.
Tim Raw, Engagement Manager.
Thank you, Tim.
Mike Wood, I'm the HRO Development Project Manager for Portsmouth City Council.
Patrick Leggett, Head of Capital Projects.
Jo Bennett, Assistant Director, Housing Need and Supply in relation to Twyford Avenue.
Thank you.
Carrie-Anne Wells, Agent for Applecall, representing 93 Telephone today.
Thank you. Do you have a name? Thank you.
I'm Nick Rowe, just here for 158 Hayling Avenue.
Thank you.
Councillor Benedict Swan, Compton and Anchorage Park Ward, giving a deputation on Cardiff Road and Shadwell Road.
Thank you.
Anna Martin, Democratic Services.
Simon Turner, Planning Team Leader.
Thank you.
David Hodges, Head of Development Management.
Good morning, Juliette Gill, Principal Planning Solicitor.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. We'll now. There are no announcements or anything I should make from the chair, I gather. So we'll move straight up. Oh yes, thank you. Has anybody got an interest in any of the applications that we're going to consider this morning? Good. Thank you very much. We've done the minutes, yep. Good, thank you. So we're moving to start with to the item on 305-207 Twyford Avenue, Portsmouth. And I'll ask the officers to describe the application to us, please. There are some matters on the SMAT that you might want to refer to supplement the report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for the redevelopment of the site at 305 to 307 Twyford Avenue for a scheme for 6 one-bedroom flats. Some members may recall that the application was previously considered by the Planning Committee earlier this year, where the application was refused, and this is a resubmission which attempts to address the reasons for refusal. Okay, so moving on, so looking at the site, you can see it's on fronts onto Twyford Avenue at the junction with Walker and Walden Road. It's currently a Victorian-style property that you'll see in a second, which has been extended over the years to the rear. So this is how the current street scene looks at the top. You'll see the very typical of the character and appearance of the area. Just to highlight a couple of views at the bottom, and particularly bottom right, that's stood with the application site on your right as you look, and looking across the road to where there's a more contemporary 3-storey flat roof development opposite. Okay, so in terms of the scheme before you, the proposal is for a 3-storey block with a flat roof. The principal change from the previous scheme is the change of the materials to the second floor, which now has a profiled sheeting. Previously, the scheme you'll see side by side in a minute had all brick. So that's the north elevation, that's where the front entrance is, and so that's facing onto Walker Road. So that's where the main access there. So the next elevation, this is on what's currently the front of the site, fronting onto Twyford Avenue. And so this is the east elevation. The scheme incorporates some balconies and Juliet balconies and patios for the private amenity space for the occupiers. So moving on to the next, this is the south elevation. This shows the relationship with the adjoined property to the south. You'll come to see from the photos later there's a number of existing openings that you can see top left on the existing building, which does affect the privacy levels in the adjacent property. And so there's a significant improvement in that relationship. Just to also highlight whilst we get to 3 stories of accommodation, it's done quite efficiently, and that is not significantly taller, for example, than the traditional pitch roof 2-story building on the site at the moment. Just looking at the west elevation, this is the rear, and again, the scheme manages to incorporate balconies and Juliet balconies for the upper flats, and then patios for the ground floor. And again, you can see that bottom right, the building has been sort of extended over time from its original appearance, and particularly close to the adjacent neighbour. So just on the next slide. So the scheme delivers us 6 one-bed flats. These are all compliant with space standards. They are all dual aspect. So despite the fact that part of the building is on the north elevation, has a northern frontage facing onto the Walker Road, it incorporates dual aspect flats for all living areas, as well as the flats as a whole. So all of the units receive good daylight and outlook across the streets and to the rear. They all meet the space standards, and the scheme also incorporates all necessary amenities, as you'll see from the layout. So we think that's used the site really well, really efficiently, and delivers us some really good units as part of the scheme. Going to the layout, so it follows the existing frontage position of the properties on Twyford Avenue. Does a very neat curve to address the corner. It's a really successful part of the design for us. That addresses that corner really, really well. The footprint is actually not much different. There's a slide later on that shows it in more detail. The footprint's actually not much different to existing, and uses the space much more efficiently and effectively. It still incorporates a couple of off-road parking spaces with EV charging, and that meets our parking standard. There's also stores just to the bottom left for each unit, so that incorporates their cycle storage, external storage, and we also accommodate bins and all necessary amenities as well as a sitting out area and some landscaping. So just looking at, these are some CGI computer-generated images provided by the applicant, show the relationship with adjacent properties and the street scene. We think it's a successful use of the site. It's used it really well, used it really efficiently. We still pick up design cues from the existing buildings in the use of the brick, and where the eave line runs round, which represents the change between the brick and the standing seam cladding. Much as we were happy to support the previous scheme, we also feel that this scheme is making a good use, efficient use, and contributes to the character of the area. This is just to give you some side-by-side comparisons between the current scheme top and the scheme on the bottom. These are both the CGIs provided at the time. One thing that the current scheme gives us a little bit more variety in terms of materials, breaking up some of that mass, which might have been a concern in the previous scheme. This is taken from the design and access statement, and put this in deliberately just to highlight why the scheme ends up with the flat roof design as shown, which is in effect the top left. One of the issues about any form of pitch roof to provide that second floor of accommodation is it significantly increases the height of the building. So for your top left example, you get an overall height of around 9.5 metres. For the other examples with pitch roof, whichever configuration you go for it, you're getting up to about 3 metres higher to the ridge. And the concern with that is the relationship with the property to the south, and the increased bulk and dominance that might have. So the flat roof allows us to use the site really, really efficiently. while still providing an attractive building contributing to the area. Just in case members hadn't had an opportunity to see the sort of proposed material in use previously, this is a scheme about 1 kilometre north. Let me just get my notes. I knew this would be the bit I couldn't remember. So this is at the corner of Doyle Avenue and Northern Parade. And I understand this, I'm happy to be corrected, I understand this was also a PCC scheme as well. So this shows how it can work in combination with the proposed brick. And again, this is taken from the design and access statement. This just shows you some of the variety in the street. 3 stories we're content with. We're on a main road. We're on a corner plot. We typically expect in good urban design to see scales get taller at corner sites to provide a feature. So we're satisfied, and particularly top left is the building I've already shown you, which is opposite the site. We're satisfied that the 3-storey scale is appropriate for the overall wider character of the area. This is just a detail taken from the applicant has done a full light assessment on the impacts next door. Just to draw your attention to the photo bottom right, the existing property has been extended fairly crudely over time, and one of the issues that's resulted in is a number of overlooking windows which would be unlikely to gain planning permission today, and there's a clear benefit to the occupier of the adjacent property in their removal in terms of their privacy. Just to look at the diagram on the left, that's taken from the light assessment. So the light assessment finds that all windows will meet the BRE guidelines. There's a minor impact to W2, which is that first floor bedroom window, because there's an increased bulk from the development, which partially affects the outlook. But having done the necessary test, that room is still a usable room with adequate daylight and would meet the standard BRE, British Research Establishment guidelines. So we're satisfied that the impact on neighbouring amenities and their living conditions is acceptable, even with a slight increase in height and bulk at that part of the scheme. Just a few photos from surrounding the site, just to orientate yourself. So top left is in the rear garden of the existing property. Top right is looking back down the street from Walden Road and Walker Road at the junction. Bottom left is in the garden looking due west. And then bottom right is the front view, the main street view. And then just some aerial views. This helps you to show how the existing property has some considerable bulk already. So it does have a significant impact on the adjacent dwelling. And just to show how that sort of fits in with the current street scene. And finally, this is just the last slide, just to show the comparators between the footprint. So the building comes marginally further to the south, which is just that blue hashing there, but does not extend quite as far to the rear. So it just makes more efficient use of the land on site. Chair, the substantive reason last time for refusal was in relation to the design, in particular the roof form, lacking the quality that was felt necessary. Since then, the applicant has gone off and done further consultation. You'll see from the SMAT with the local community. Bearing in mind the nature of the scheme, the level of third-party responses is very low. We've only had a single objection to this current application and only on parking grounds. The public consultation did not raise particular significant concerns over the design of the proposed scheme. And so we're satisfied that the applicant has gone out and sought to engage with the community, and interestingly, the community response shows over 150 responses, and yet that hasn't translated into third-party objections to the current schemes. Just to mop up a couple of issues just to clarify from the update. Yes, apologies, there's an error in the part of recommendation 3 referring to affordable housing. The scheme at 6 units is below the threshold for affordable housing, so it's not part of the heads of terms in recommendation number 1. The applicant may choose to develop it as affordable housing, but we couldn't insist on that as a planning authority. Just to highlight the additional condition for obscure glazing, condition 22, just to cover that south elevation where there's a number of bathroom windows proposed for the flats. But on the basis, we recommend the application for approval, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to ask for deputations. We go first with those for the application. Again, you have 12 minutes between you. That will be 3 minutes each, if that's how you wanted to do it. Go ahead.
Hello. Patrick Leggett, Head of Capital Projects, reading on behalf of Councillor Sanders. Hello. I'm sorry I cannot be here today. I'm at the LGA conference. One of the key things from talking with Labour, Conservative, Independent and Lib Dem leaders here is the need for more council housing. The casework we all get from people wanting a home is large. Indeed, I've had it from the planning committee members while at this conference, for which many thanks. Our waiting list is too large, as we know, to tackle it means building as well as buying homes. After the committee's initial refusal, rather than appeal as private developers do, I asked the team to respect your decision and deal with your concerns. This, the team has done, based on the issues I understand you raised. As such, the upper floor materiality has been amended to reflect the colour palette and horizontal nature of the adjoining terrace. As you know, the team is keen to involve more people where possible in its work, so it held a public consultation event. More than 160 people attended. The lack of hostility to our plans, and those of us who know the area will know that they will tell you if they hate something, was noticeable. The team also looked at the amended designs, especially amended roofs. However, this would mean losing 2 units, so making the scheme unviable. Now, veterans of this committee know that when a developer says that they cannot make a 20%, so that when a developer says that, they mean they cannot make a 20% profit. For the few members, perhaps not fully versed on housing finance, the team does not need to make any profit on development. This means that when the scheme is unviable, it means the council loses money on it. That is not acceptable. So I hope colleagues will approve this scheme today. We all know that there is a need for council housing in our city. This is a passive house scheme helping us honour our climate emergency commitments. These homes are above national space standards. Members' issues with the roofs have been dealt with in a way that does not mean the council loses money. Thank you for taking the time and trouble to hear me today. I hope you back the officers and approve this changed scheme.
Thank you very much. The councillors, in fact, are exempt from the 12 minutes rule. So if the 3 of you want to speak, you have 4 minutes each. And thank you for reading out Councillor Sanders' deputation, which we all have a copy of, I think, as well.
Thank you very much. Tim Raw, Engagement Manager. Thank you very much for the opportunity to summarise the work that my team and I did in the local area with the community. We spoke with 164 local people of the 500 people that we approached who lived closest to the site. And while the info booklet that we sent out afterwards, which you've got access to and is online, and the report show those comments and show them to range from very positive to indifferent. You know, it's fine. We're not bothered. I just wanted to read you out some of the quotes that we've taken from those feedback forms, of which we had many. But we've broken down the subjects into those that were most talked about. So if we take, for instance, no problems, the direct quotes, and these are directly from local people, the people living closer to the site. No concerns at all. I can't see anything wrong with this. If we then take the generally like the look of it. We've got some quotes. Looks really nice. This will improve the image of the road. Aesthetically pleasing, like the change of brick to metal. We've got people need homes. This is the way forward. 12 people are going to be taken off the housing list. Good to, again, these are all direct quotes from the local community. Good to see something with the empty space. It's been empty a long time. Glad to see the site being developed at last. This is a good development. I'm on board with new houses. City needs social housing. I could go on and on, but the feel of the conversations that we were having over and over again, and again, I should point out that we ran this programme in exactly the way we run all our built environment programmes, which is to ask open questions and allow local people to answer in exactly the way they want to, and then we record everything they tell us. So the two questions were, what do you like about these plans, and what would you like to see improved? The general feel was, this is a derelict site, a difficult site for fly tipping and all sorts of reasons. We think this is a positive use of that site, and there was not a groundswell of negativity against the look of the buildings. In fact, most of the comments were, yeah, fine, and some were positive. But you can see everything that we did, as I say, in the info booklet and online. And thank you for the opportunity to summarise it for you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else want to speak in favour? Thank you, that was very clear. Is there anybody wanting to speak against this development? Okay, then we'll move on to questions from members of this committee.
Just a question. The room heights within the building, they are all equivalent to those in the adjoining houses, are they?
Chair, off the top of my head, I can't answer that because I don't know the room heights in the existing building. The room heights would just need to meet the sort of fairly standard building regs. In general, the Victorian properties may have a slightly higher ceiling height. Having said that, one of the things that's been changed in the design is to ensure that the brick feature picks up the eaves height of the existing properties on Twyford Avenue. All I would just add is that obviously the scheme, if it goes ahead, would need to meet building regs with minimum ceiling heights. Yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Vallely.
I'm just going back to the flat roof. Won't that cost us money in the long run to repair?
No, I mean, when I started in planning about 30 years ago, it was something that you didn't do. But the technology with GRP is come on leaps and bounds, and they're happy to guarantee those for decades these days. So it's been a very common approach to building and using land efficiently. So yes, your kind of felt flat roof image of the sort of leaky 1960s extension is very much moved on now, and there is a very viable and very commonly used building form.
Thank you.
Why could we not have had a pitched roof and had the same amount of flats?
Yes, so the purpose of showing that slide from the design and access statement is to show how if you need the ceiling height and then you need a pitch on top, due to the nature of that construction and the pitch and the angle that you have, you end up with a much taller building. So the design access statement says that will be approximately 3 metres higher by the ridge. Our concern with that is in the impact to the adjacent property, because that increases that bulk and height close on that boundary. The other way to approach it is to do more of a mansard style roof. The difficulty with that in this instance is sort of twofold. The mansard inevitably has less floor space in the roof than the flats below, because you've got a slope, you've got to set that back, you don't get as much footprint and floor space. So that's, as my the deputations alluded, that's the difference between the scheme not being viable because we lose units at the second floor. So that's the difficulty with the mansard. The other issue, I think, in terms of if you do that mansard roof, that's inevitably, you either match the pitch of the existing houses on Twyford and you lose an enormous amount of floor space, or you have a steeper pitch which will look very awkward against the different pitch on there. So that would be my interpretation of why it's not been done.
Thank you very much. Councillor Atwell.
Chair, as part of the public consultation, were those other options of different types of roofs given to people to consider?
From the information, that doesn't suggest that different designs were, it wasn't in effect a beauty parade of which one do you prefer, from the information that I can see.
Chair, our initial, this is, sorry, a comment. Our initial concerns were around design, so we wanted people to get involved in those kinds of conversations. So if they're only presented with flat roof options, then we got, yeah, fine, was it? I got, yeah, fine.
Please.
Would it be possible to ask what is the current floor space in the flats as opposed to what is the average at the moment?
I don't have the actual floor space in front of me. I understand there's 4 units in the scheme, but also, unfortunately, the building is suffering from subsidence, and our understanding is it's, in effect, it can't be made good economically, so that's why it's they're looking to redevelop the property.
Sorry, maybe I said the question slightly wrong. So the proposed scheme, what's the proposed floor space per unit in the proposed scheme as opposed to what the national standards are?
Apologies, misunderstood your question, Councillor. I might need to just check the plans, because can I come back to you on that one? Yeah, thank you.
And also, would it be possible to bring up again the floor plan showing number 333 Twyford Avenue next to it, so that we can see the footprint? I noticed that the building sticks back at the back edge from 303, and you mentioned a consideration to light in the upstairs bedroom of 303. Have you got anything that shows how much of an impact that will have on the light in that bedroom at all?
Yes, there is a slide showing that. That's it.
Chair, for clarity, yes, there's a technical document in the application documents that does a full light assessment. The impacts are all in line with the standard guidance, with the exception of there's a minor impact to that window W2 there in terms of its what's called its NSL, which is how much of the sky you see, putting it in very, very simple terms. Notwithstanding that, so in effect the building has an impact, a little bit of an impact on how much sky you see beyond, because there's more building and it's slightly closer. Notwithstanding that, they've done the additional tests and there's sufficient light in that room that makes it still a livable room which will meet the standards.
Thank you. If there aren't any more questions, I'll ask a question myself. We're very keen on reducing the amount of hard standings and impermeable surfaces in the ground. Is there any possibility of increasing the ability of the land at the back of the development to soak away, so that we're not filling up the sewage system with rainwater, for example, gravel or some other solution that allows rainwater to return to the ground rather than going into the sewage system?
Chair, that's typically a matter for building regulations to ensure adequate drainage from the site, but from the planning side we can certainly request that all surfaces are permeable and so we don't create additional runoff, and that's a very standard, typical position to take. I can, sorry, I was just going to say I can answer the question about the room sizes as well now. So the each unit is 50 square metres, and so the minimum standard for one bed, two-person flat is around 37 to 39 square metres, so it's comfortably above.
Thank you. I mean, we have made permeable surfaces a planning condition in some cases in the past. I think it's an area that falls between planning and building regulations. Another question is that the thermal properties of the building have been talked about. There's not, I can't see a substantive description of that in the planning application. Could you confirm the thermal properties of the building? You said passive, somebody mentioned passive house, but it's not, I don't think, in the report.
Apologies, I'm still getting to grips with all the local plan policies after 3 weeks. So my understanding is the applicant is intending to build it to a passive house standard. As far as our local plan goes, we can't insist on that. That is a very high standard, it's very efficient. If built to that standard, for example, the occupants' heating bills would be very, very low. We can, there is a standard and condition I'm advised by Mr. Turner that we could impose if members wanted to ensure at least a minimum standard in terms of the quality of the build.
Thank you very much. Derek.
If I could just ask with regards to a mansard roof again, so if we've got 50 square metres of proposed floor space but only 38 to 39 on what's needed, do you think that a mansard roof would use up more than 11 to 12 square metres of usable floor space on each flat?
I couldn't answer that. That would need to be designed out by an architect who could do that work, I'm afraid. It would very much depend on the pitch of the roof, Chair. Apologies.
Thank you. If there are no questions, we'll move on to comments and proposals. Peter?
Chair, I've been trying to ask a question for a while, but it's nothing too bad, and my apologies if it was, I fear I'm having a goldfish moment, and I may have asked the question the last time this came in front of us. So in respect of the flat roof, am I correct in understanding that it is not accessible to people, not designed to be accessible to people, and I am delighted that the house is being built to passive house standards, because that's designing out fuel poverty from the get-go. But is there also solar being put on top of that, on top of that flat roof?
Yes, so if you just, I don't know if you can bring back the floor plan. So the second floor plan doesn't show any stairwell up and onto the roof. So if that was a concern. So bottom left is the second floor plan. So that doesn't show any form of stairwell up onto the flat roof. Simon, if you can just go to the first elevation. There are solar panels indicate. Oh, actually, sorry, it's on that roof plan. Top left shows solar PV.
Thank you very much. Anybody else I've missed for questions? Good, well, I'll move on then to comments and towards decision making. Councillor Atwell.
Thank you, Chair. I had a problem with this before, as most of us did. I think I still have a problem with it, in that it doesn't look very much different to what we considered in January, in reality. And I'm at odds with the deputies around it contributing to the character of the area, or that it matches the adjoining terrace in terms of design. So I'm yet to be persuaded that this is any better than the application we saw in January.
I'm of a contrary view, and I think this shows the value of this committee in sending things back. It is better, it looks much less bulky, and in fact, it's I think, comparatively light for a building of its size in terms of its bulk. I like the continuation of the roof level being the level between the brickwork and the metalwork, and I think it respects the distinctive nature of that corner, as indeed the previous building which was there did. I think this is a very much better building, and so I would propose the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Does anybody want to second that or propose any conditions that went on? Peter.
I wasn't going to, I was simply going to second it, and I would have added some comments myself. So if I do those briefly now, I'm of Councillor Mason's view that I think this is an improved property from the last time that we saw it, that it is increasing density and providing good quality flats, which we need in the city. It is modern, but that's not entirely unique within the area, and I think it is an improvement on what we have there, and it is evidently not opposed by the locals. Now, we wouldn't normally expect to do a survey of a property or a development if it was a private developer. So actually, I think we've gone over and above in consulting local people about this. And as a planning committee, we are supposed to have a positive bias to approve within the framework of the MPPF. Anyway, something like that. I'm sure the experts will know I have the right things. I think the fact we're putting in a house which probably has quite low thermal properties at the moment and replacing it one with a passive house and doing it in a way that, although it isn't mandated as being affordable, is going to be used by the council in that kind of way. So I think this is a very positive development, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any contrary proposal? And do we want to impose any conditions? We did talk earlier on about surface drainage, maximising that, and we had a conversation about passive house, and are those things we should be thinking about as conditions, or?
Chair, yes, it'd be legitimate to add the condition about permeable surfacing and also building standards. The only thing I would say is I don't believe we have the policy support to insist on a passive house standard, but we can certainly impose our usual condition.
Would you like to word the condition then on maximising the surface drainage on the site?
Yes, in terms of permeable surfacing, typically we would say all hard surfacing within the site shall be permeable. That's easily defined, and it's also set out in other legislation, such as the permitted development order, for example. In terms of the building design, I think I've demurred to my colleague's expertise in terms of, we presume we have a standard for that, and if it's delegated down to us, we can do the wording on that, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any proposals contrary to that proposal? We have a promoter and a seconder. Councillor Atwell.
I'm not sure this is a proposal, because the room doesn't seem to be with me in terms of but I wish we could do better for people in terms of design, because it still looks, to me, like it's just sort of been dropped from outer space. It looks incongruous with, particularly with the neighbouring houses.
That's not a proposal, it's an observation, but yes, I understand that. I must say, I think this is a good deal better than the one we had previous. And I'm delighted to see some new social housing run by the council for homeless people built in this particular area. So shall we move to a vote then? We have a motion on the table and proposed by Councillor Mason that we grant planning permission in accordance with the officer's recommendation, subject to the additional condition. Could you raise your hands if you agree with that? Okay, that's 4. Do we have votes against? 3. Do we have an abstention? Thank you. You have planning consent then to do this development. Thank you very much for your deputation. Okay, shall we move on to the next item? I'm proposing that we move the next item to be Shadwell Road, because we have somebody here who needs to get away. Is everybody happy for us to do that? And then we'll just move everything down the agenda. So Shadwell Road is item 5, and it's on page... then we get there first. $35, thank you very much.
35 according to the front sheet on the...
Page 35, thank you. That's Cardiff Road.
Chair, I think it's page 65.
65, thank you very much. So this is an application for change of use from a Class 3 C3 dwelling house to a 7-bed house in multiple occupation. And the same thing, we'll have a presentation from officers and then any deputations and then discussion. Please.
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, as you said, it's an application for the change of use of the property from a C3 dwelling house to a 7-bed, 7-person house of multiple occupation, 43 Shadwell Road in Hilsey. So this is a site, just to confirm the point that the application is purely for the change of use. The plans show a number of extensions to be undertaken to the property as permitted development, and they are not part of the planning application today. But there shows you the aerial view and the ordnance survey location and the potential location of a proposed cycle store in the rear garden. So just a view from the front of the side, very typical property of the area. So you'll see we set out in the report the test in our supplementary planning document, the HMO SPD, about the concentration of HMOs in the area. So we've identified 4 properties within the 50-metre radius, and that gives us a density of 7%, just over 7% in this instance. So this is existing layout of the property, very typical of the housing stock and the properties in the area. And so the proposed works include these extensions to be undertaken as permitted development to the rear, which will provide the kitchen dining area, and then into the loft space, where dormer windows will be added to the rear to create the 2 extra bedrooms. So we have 2 bedrooms then to the second floor, 3 at first floor, and then 2 at the ground floor with a combined kitchen dining space. As you'll see from the report, all the bedrooms meet the 10 square metre requirement set down in the SPD, and the combined kitchen dining area, it also meets the standard in our document. And that just shows you the elevations and how the building will be extended, but as I say, those extensions do not require planning permission from the council. It's just a cross-section which shows how the space is then used inside once the building's extended. And then just some photos of the building. When my colleague visited the site, it had no works had started at this point, and so it's as is. And again, this shows you the building, and just top left, just to show you the existing side light well. That'll be the aspect out from bed news 7. One change that is made is to make that particular opening a full height window for additional light. And just a shot of the rear, and then the existing light well landing in the building. So Chair, there's no further updates from the SMAT this morning. You'll see how we set out in the report our view that the scheme complies with our policy and our guidance, and so for that reason the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. We've got, I think, 4 deputations. Are there 4 people here? Councillor Simpson, Councillor Swan, anybody else? Okay. How long do we give councillors to speak?
Councillors have 6 minutes each. They usually come after the... So we start with the objectors and then we go on to the applicant and then we go on to members.
That's what I thought. You decide between you which one of you wants to go first. It's Councillor Simpson.
The objectors first. Isn't that what you just said?
Yes, it's the members of the public objecting.
Okay, all right. Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chair and Committee. I've lost count how many times I've read a deputation for Shadwell Road in Hilsey. It seems Shadwell is in Planning Committee every month and residents are still questioning and asking the Planning Department to determine how many HMOs are in the road. The numbers don't add up. Concerning this application, and unlike the previous, they seem to be getting tighter with room sizes, but still asking for 7 or 8 bedrooms. Bedroom 1, 2 and 3 are very generous of size. However, bedroom 4, 6 and especially 7 are barely within the 10 metre squared. That then allows for a smaller communal room that is barely 22.5 metres squared either. To accompany the bedrooms 4, 5 and 6 are also bathrooms that are barely making the standard for making the standards, with bedroom 5 being only 0.03 of the standard required. Previous applications have highlighted the impact of these overdeveloped 3-bedroom houses into 7-bedroom en-suites, especially on our Victorian sewage system where excretion is floating in our streets. Residents that are already neighbours of HMOs are also commenting on the bike sheds, which we push for every planning committee, are not being used and left empty for years. This is because they don't use bikes, they use cars. The planning department always argues that the data doesn't add. The planning department always argues that the data always supports that it's not an overuse of parking. However, the cars are adding up in Shadwell, Oriel and Ophir, and the residents have to park half a mile away. Even the highways parking SPD at 8.25 states that a requirement of 2 off-road parking spaces is required for a sous-genre. The width of 43 at Shadwell Road is a single car length. So it wouldn't be a small change at all. It would be a great impact to parking woes it already has. I hope the committee can see this as an overdevelopment with residents calling out for an in-depth review of HMOs within the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. In this property, the kitchen dining area is labelled as 23.80 metres square. Taking out the entrance corridor, which is unusable space, this will reduce this space to approximately 23 metres square. The dining room end is narrower than the kitchen end. Has this variance in width been allowed for? It was not, for example, with the 27 Balfour Road kitchen plans, so it can't be presumed that it has been here. This reduction in width could easily make the kitchen dining area below the required size of 22.5 metres square. As some of the bedrooms are now below 10 metres square of usable space, this area is required to be 34 metres square in any case. Also, is it hygienic to have a WC and laundry combined? Is that practical? It's stated that adjoining occupiers' living conditions are unlikely to be significantly impacted because of the level of activity will not be that different to that of any of a dwelling house in Class C. I beg to differ on that point. In an average family house, there will not be 8 toilets and 7 showers. Numerous toilets and showers could all be in use at the same time. Therefore, although this proposal has its own tanks, the surrounding properties will suffer low water pressure. In addition, the pipes that feed into the main Victorian sewage system have only capacity to take so much. The application form shows that foul sewerage is to be disposed of by the main sewer. This will create immense pressure on the already outdated overburdened network. Portsmouth City Council's parking standards, SPD, sets a level of 2 off-road spaces for an HMO with 4+ bedrooms. The expected level for a C3 with 3 bedrooms is 1.5 off-road spaces. Even with a conditional bike shed, it can still be anticipated that 7 individual adults will require more than the width of this property in parking space. There is no back access to this property. It is not acceptable that more and more HMO conversions are being paused when parking spaces are in such short supply, when parking spaces are in such short supply. This road and the surrounding area is quite clearly being targeted for HMO conversions, and the quality of life for existing residents is being eroded. And I apologise for repeating some of the points already raised.
Thank you. Are there any other people here wanting to do deputations on this 43 Shadwell Road? Good. Okay. So could we go on to questions from members?
Can I just get, obviously with the query with the amount of HMOs in that area, I just get clarification that our numbers are correct for the HMOs?
Thank you. Yes, they are correct. We've checked and checked again.
Does that include possible HMOs that's owned by the council?
Yeah, well, our records account for the database that planning holds and the database that licensing holds, and we interrogate that very carefully. We consult with licensing as well. We can check with council tax as well, and then of course we consult, publicise the application to neighbours, and if and when neighbours, as they have, ask about the numbers of HMOs in the area. We can check on any that they've identified and saying, what about number X or Y? We will go and check on that physically on site if necessary, certainly against our data records, council tax, licensing and planning. And then of course we send our data, what we think is in the 50-metre radius, to the councillors as well, in case they know their areas well from all their constituency meetings and ward meetings and so on. So we go through all of those checks to make sure that the data, we're confident in the data that we present to you. I think there has been some possible confusion here dating from a previous application and remarks about how many HMOs are in the street, which we agree with the neighbour who's raising that. But of course, for each application, it's how many HMOs are in the 50-metre radius. And we agree with the properties that this particular neighbour has identified, and they are the ones in front of you within this 50-metre radius. So, long answer, but yes, we are confident in the data presented to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason?
Councillor Swan, in his deputation, raised the matter of sewerage. Do we have any information from presumably Southern Water as to the adequacy of the main sewer in this road?
Chair, not directly in relation to this application. However, the statutory undertaker has a duty to ensure that there's adequate provision within the city for foul development of foul water disposal. So, in order for it to be an issue for planning, we would need to be advised by Southern that, in effect, we were at a position with no further capacity and we couldn't approve anything more. So we're not at that stage. So unless the statutory undertaker is objecting to us, we would always have to caution against any reason for refusal on foul water disposal grounds. I believe we did recently have an appeal decision where in relation to a HMO, that line of argument was pursued by the council and we were unsuccessful, and we also lost costs for not substantiating our reasons for refusal. So we do need the statutory undertaker to object if we want to use that line as a reason for refusal, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on this application? Councillor Atwell.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Swan talked about the corridor into the kitchen, what do we call it? Kitchen dining area. Can the planners confirm what the usable space will be if that corridor is taken out of the floor plan?
Just to clarify, you're talking about the
Corridor.
the space that the door takes up on the side of the toilet, and that some potential units might. I'm not
There's
sure
this narrow sort of corridor bit going into what I think we would all consider to be the usable space. And I know Councillor Swan sort of talked about that, but I wonder from the planners what they consider that amount of space to be.
I mean, you have to have a door in the remote. Certainly, we'll ask the planners here, but there is one in this set which has a large corridor, but this I'm not. Simon, or would you be able to answer that question, please?
Yeah, so it is. I mean, we have set that out in the report that it exceeds the standards. So that's on the table on page 73. So we're at 23.8. My understanding is we do, these dimensions are checked and double checked all the time to ensure that we do meet the standard, and then any space that isn't usable space as suggested would still meet that. But you are still 1.3 square metres over the standard for any space behind that door.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, then I will ask for comments and moving towards a decision, please. Yourself.
Could we pull up the proposed floor plans again up on the front? I'm just struggling around bedrooms 4 and bedroom 7. Now, we have to take on board the information put before us, but something just doesn't sit right with me. If the two en-suites, so the ensuite for bedroom 3 and the ensuite for bedroom 6, are not stacked directly above each other, they are in fact offset, which would indicate that bedroom 4 is much larger than bedroom 7, somewhere around about 0.7 square metres. Yet the floor space doesn't account for that. It accounts for 0.2. And then also in bedroom number 7, where the shower has come out of the corner, that's just not quite adding up for me. Something doesn't look right there.
Would you like to explain the plans, please?
Yes, Chair. I think if you look at, for example, bed 7, I think that this is the difference. So the stud wall to the ensuite is flush with the main rear wall with the building where the window is. Thanks, Simon. And then the difference upstairs with 4 is that building sits into the room a little bit. But what you can also just about see is that bed 4 goes back further towards the front very marginally than 7. So it's not quite in the same place in terms of that partition as well. So I imagine that's where the difference sits, Chair.
I suppose we have to take the information to be in front of us to be true and to be checked by officers at a later date, and certainly through licensing. So I suppose it's just an observation that doesn't quite sit right in my head.
Thank you very much. Matt, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. It seems every committee now we're having HMO applications for Shadwell Road and the adjoining roads. And having lived down Shadwell Road myself, I can confirm Councillor Simpson's concerns around parking. if you were to drive down there after 5:30 at night, for instance, you'd be incredibly lucky to find a parking space. And I just feel this application is going to put more pressure on this issue.
We are one of a small number of councils that do have this sort of condition on, and the proof that it works is that we very rarely nowadays get applications from the areas where they're the most highest density of HMOs. That's way above the standard that we have. We hardly ever get one around Montgomery Road, Baileys Road in Southsea, where there are far more HMOs. So that policy does work, but thank you for that.
If I could just come back, I don't think the residents would agree with you there, unfortunately.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I don't think the residents would agree with you there, unfortunately. They have to live on these roads, and parking is an absolute nightmare, I can assure you.
Yes, I wasn't contesting what you said about parking. Shall we move on then? Oh, Councillor Atwell.
Sorry, I've got a question about the light in bedrooms 7 and 4. Was it, because we're quite often looking for larger windows in properties like this. Can the officer confirm what the kind of arrangements are for those bedrooms?
Yes, so yeah, bottom left, the intention is to put in a full length opening for bed 7 on the ground floor. Also, if we could just go to the ordnance survey, you see that the rear of the house is south facing, so we can expect that there would be still good sunlight getting towards that room.
Thank you. Are we ready to move on to comments and recommendations, colleagues? Go ahead.
So with all the queries and questions about room sizes, usable space, obviously parking and everything else, I suggest we defer this application for viewing. For some of us, we've asked a few times to actually go and view a property, obviously being new councillors and that. So I put a suggestion in that we defer this for now, and so we can actually go and actually have a look.
Do I have a seconder for that?
Seconded.
Okay. Are there any other alternative recommendations?
I guess I have to provide an alternative, Chair, because although I do accept, I think we do need to go and see some properties because I think it will move the conversation on. I'm not sure necessarily that we should choose this one to do it on, because I don't know whether this is typical of what we want to see or will provide, or is even organisable to do. So I support going to see them. In this instance, I think we have to have as a principle that as a committee we trust the measurements that are provided to us by the officers, unless there is, you know, an exceptional error discovered during the process of review or a real smoking gun that goes against us. Otherwise, you know, madness lies and we won't get any business done through the committee. So I empathise, but I'm going to propose that, well, I would propose that, I need to be careful on what I'm proposing here. I would not be supporting making this the object of a visit, and I don't think I have yet had to propose a motion for or against this application per se. Is that correct, Chair?
You can do both, I think. You can move on from one to the other.
Okay. Do I need to separate them? Are they two separate things or are they within one? I shall do them in one. I'll do them in one go. Let's try and keep this efficient. So, I am going to support the officer's recommendation on this one because I think this is similar to so many others that come through this committee, and I support them for more or less the same reasons each time that I do. Firstly, I start from a law-abiding position, which is my job is to kind of implement the laws of the land, and the legislative framework that we have has a starting point that we're all supposed to enter this committee on, of having an open mind, but having a positive bias towards supporting developments subject to the fact that it is within the rules that are going on. Secondly, we often rehearse in this hall that Portsmouth has very high standards compared to other places. The sizes of the rooms they're not palaces, but they are adequate and are higher than are set in other places, and that we should celebrate that. I also think that typically, and you saw it even on the pictures that we saw here, that moments where houses are renewed in terms of their plumbing, their insulation, their general decor, probably leaves us with, as a stock of housing in the city, something better than we have at the moment. I would expect this HMO to have far better energy characteristics, light characteristics, for the plumbing and wiring to be renewed and upgraded, and I see all of those things as positives. I do hear the point about parking, and it is an absolute nightmare anywhere up through that strip of the city. Absolutely no doubt about it. I'm the Cabinet Member for Transport. I can tell you that in 2010 there were 90,000 vehicles registered to Portsmouth. Today there's 115,000. 25,000 more vehicles. Portsmouth hasn't got any bigger. However, you start to break that down, around a quarter of households have no cars whatsoever, and those are predominantly people with younger people in, and also the very elderly. I also accept the truth that most of the bike sheds we ask for are not used. It is not convenient to carry your bike through the house, particularly if it is a snaky path to go through, but even if it's not, who likes doing that? And that's why the council are putting in bike hangers. It's why there is a role for scooters, which would be a very controversial thing for us to get down, but outside the scope of this planning meeting. And there are many other things we can go on to in this. But if we look at this application specifically on its merits, with the information we have here, I may not be enthusiastic about it, and I may understand the concerns that residents have over densification without additional resources being put into things like sewage. Let's just leave it on the sewage. But again, I think whether this application goes through or not, frankly, we should be investing in putting new and better sewage into large parts of our city, because we've seen what happens when we don't. Eastern Road goes pop. The same thing happens on a smaller domestic scale in our streets. We need to have that programme of renewal of infrastructure going on. But I'm a simple guy on the planning committee on a Wednesday morning deciding whether I'm going to put another rental property through on Shadwell Road. I see no reason. I see no reason why I cannot, and therefore I shall be proposing to accept the officer's recommendation, and therefore proposing this application.
Thank you for such a fine speech, Councillor Candish. We possibly hope we don't have exactly the same on all the other applications today, nice and long. Councillor Mason, is there a second for this?
I would second that proposal. We have set our standards. They are by national standards well above what many other councils require. So this property meets our standards for a house in multiple occupation. The proposer has addressed the question of light coming into, certainly into bedroom 7, in a very sensible way. The layout is good, it is easy to use, there are no major problems here. The small entranceway into the kitchen is really not much more than a metre, if it is a metre, square metre. And so I can see no possible reason for refusing it. As for parking, perhaps I'm biased since I live in the King's Theatre car park, but it seems to me that in this part of the north of the island, although there is pressure on parking, it is nowhere near the amount of pressure on parking we see in areas in the south of the city where we have houses in multiple occupation, and they manage, and I think Shadwell Road will manage.
So we have a proposer and a seconder. Is there any alternative? We had a proposal for deferral. Do I have to take the deferral one first?
Can I just check what the reason for the deferral is?
For viewing.
But viewing on what?
The
what
size of the
ground?
rooms
Size of the rooms.
and the living space.
Chair, is it possible I could just, Chair, just to clarify, if the application is deferred, obviously, as you've seen from the photos, our understanding is the building hasn't been converted yet, so there are proposals. So you would only be seeing the building pre-development rather than post. The other thing I just wanted, my understanding is we are attempting to arrange a site visit for members specifically to look at HMOs, a variety of HMOs. So hopefully that could answer some of your questions, and that is in train to be arranged for members to do.
Chair, in answer to your question, you would take the deferral first.
Okay, can I then ask those who want to support the recommendation for a deferral on this application to raise their hands? Those who are against that recommendation, raise their hands. Thank you. We're not going to have a deferral this time. We are going to have this site visit to several HMOs, which I think will be very useful. It was helpful. It's a helpful idea. We have a second proposal, which is to accept the change of use. Could I have a show of hands of those who would support this HMO? Thank you. Can I have those against to show? The planning permission is granted. Those who are watching might have noticed Councillor Shah coming in. Welcome. He's not allowed to participate in any planning decision where he hasn't been here from the beginning. So thank you for not raising your hands or anything at that stage. Welcome to the meeting. Do you have any interest to declare? No. Thank you. So now we're going to proceed to 138 Cardiff Road, which is item 7 on the agenda. And which is page 25. 35, yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So we have an application at 138 Cardiff Road for a change of use from a Class C dwelling house to a Class C3 or Class C4. So that is the flexible permission, if granted, over a 10-year period, enabling the owner to go between or change from a Class C3 dwelling house to a C4 HMO backwards and forwards without needing further planning permission across the 10-year period. Cardiff Road is up in Nelson Ward. We do have a deputation, so we have Councillor Swan here and I believe the applicant, Mr. Gooch. And I have supplementary matters in a few moments. Cardiff Road, North-South Road here, and it's a terraced street with a mixture actually of uses. You can see Stamshaw Infant opposite to the west. It backs onto a big commercial laundry to the east, place of worship just to the north, and the former pub converted into flats, as well as the terraced housing. It's the application site there, a mid-terrace 2-storey. With respect to usually the two principal matters, we identify the first of a mixed and balanced community. Here is the 50-metre radius for this property. There are currently no HMOs in the area. If this one is approved, it would take the figure to 2.44%, so well below the 10% threshold indicative of a mixed and balanced community. So it complies with that side of policy. Fairly typical terraced house with two rooms in the main body of the house and a rear wing. 3 bedrooms upstairs, a WC, and at the back, a single-storey bathroom and a small doorway entrance to the garden there. The property would be well, it already has a rear door. Well, it's underway, I think, still the rear dormer in terms of extending into the roof, which, for the record, does not require planning permission. So no effects from that can be taken into account in the decision today. So downstairs, you come straight into, the proposal is to come straight into the dining living area. And then we have a downstairs shared bathroom and then a snug at the back. Going upstairs, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms with a shared bathroom, and then in the enlarged roof space, 3 more bedrooms, apologies, and a shared WC. So the shared bathroom WC complies with your standards for up to 6 residents. 6 bedrooms are shown here. We're used to seeing either 3 individual rooms, dining room, living room or kitchen, but more commonly actually the combined 1 communal living space, as I think in the last application. This application is slightly different in that we have 2 rooms. So here we have the living kitchen, shared room, and then a further snug at the back. So as set out in the report, if this was the only communal room, it would need to be 34 square metres. For the 6 occupiers, it's 30.77, so a little short. But then there is this further room, the snug, shown at 7.61. So as a pragmatic approach in this case, we think the combination of the snug in addition to the communal larger room provides a suitable level of amenity for the 6 occupiers. Whether or not they have a TV in the front communal area or in the smaller snug, it's up to them, but it's clearly a second and pleasant smaller space for communal use. So officers are happy with that particular combination of shared ground floor communal space as well as the sanitary provisions, and then the bedrooms all exceed the 6.51 minimum, so set out in the table on page 40. They're around about 0.5 metre to 1.5 metres and so on beyond, so all the bedrooms comfortably comply with your standards. So on the basis I've just explained to you, we are happy to recommend approval. Just show a couple of photographs. This is the shared communal space, the double room looking forwards. That's the bay window, just partially hidden there by some plaster. That's been removed since ongoing work. There's the rear dormer that's gone in, and this is the rebuilt area forming the snug, re-insulated, I should say, and made up to a good standard. And then a bit of a messy back garden doing construction, and there's the rear of the commercial laundry just there. Moving on to the Supplementary Matters Report, the SMAT. We've had 2 further letters of objection from people who'd already written in, but sometimes people write in again once they've seen the recommendation and read the report. So further comments about concern about the light to windows and the party wall from the neighbours on either side. They feel that's not been considered in the officer's report, and other matters were trivialised, and they feel it's a dishonest application which might seek to convert the snug into a 7th bedroom. So they'd like to see a condition limiting the occupancy to 6. The officer response is that we have explained in paragraph 1.9 why impacts from the external works, namely the roof extensions, cannot be taken into account because they're permitted development. So that's with respect to concern about light from the neighbours. And then any party wall matters which have been raised are also not for considered in the planning application. That's building regs and party wall regulations. Otherwise, officers are happy that we satisfactorily addressed all the other matters in the report. Lastly, on the question of the snug, so the resident is concerned that could be used as a 7th bedroom. Of course, Class C4 is up to 6 people. We're happy to have a condition which I can read out here. So an additional condition we would propose is that the room labelled snug on the approved plans shall be retained for communal amenity use and shall not be used as a bedroom. Reason in order that sufficient communal amenity space is provided for the Class C3, C4 flexible use hereby granted in accordance with the local plan and the HMO supplementary planning document. Members, moving on to the title Ceiling Heights in the Supplementary Matters Report, we've interrogated further since publication some of the matters around ceilings heights. So if I read out what's written in the Supplementary Matters Report. For completeness, members' attention is drawn to a further detail on ceiling heights. That 1.5 metre height is well known to be provided for usable and measurable floor space, and those are the figures that are provided for you in the table. There was also a criterion of 2.3 metres height for at least 75% of a room's gross internal area. The applicant's annotation of bedroom 6 shows that this criterion cannot be achieved. So this is the 2.3 area that does not cover height area that does not cover 75% of the floor space. Of course, by moving a wall, you can amend that percentage. So it's a dynamic criterion which can be used to try and change an overall quantitative amount, but it actually may not actually improve the room. For example, this is a sloping ceiling, as you can see, in the front of the house with roof lights, 1.5 down to 1 metre. If you moved the wall further into the room, you'd increase the percentage over 2.5, but you'd make the room smaller. So that seems probably illogical to do that. Having identified that one of the criterion is not complied with, that does not automatically, I'm still reading from the SMAT here, automatically mean the application be refused, because careful room design, for example, layout and furniture, may still provide adequate amenity for an occupant. As we're always saying to you, members, we can look at the standards, but let's also look at the qualitative judgment around the arrangement of individual rooms and the whole property. The application is, of course, for a C3, C4 use, and the C4 use allows for 3 to 6 unrelated residents. It does not have to be 6, it could be 5, for example. A planning consent may be granted, and the proposed C4 use granted, and the licensing regime will go on to consider the fine details under their regulatory regime. So we've continued interrogating the matter with bedroom 6. This is the only room that we wish to do that further on, and the applicant, of course, is obliged, looking at ceiling heights and potential furniture arrangement. So this is a new plan that the applicant has kindly provided, which illustrates one potential layout of the room. So there's a single bed, there's a bedside table, here is a full-size wardrobe next to it. Those are some of the furniture they've shown indicatively, and there it is on the section. So this is the entrance door in the little entrance into the room. There's the bed partly behind a wardrobe there. You can see the sloping heights is why we've looked further at this room. I still think there's opportunity for lower cupboard space type of arrangements, lower shelves, to make maximum use, should the occupier want to, of that sort of space in the lower height in this sort of area, for example. So the applicants have provided this further work to illustrate the sort of qualitative arrangement that you could meet. The room size has also been measured and is now stated at 8.62 square metres above the 1.5 metre height. So we're still happy, we remain, with the further interrogation officers are still happy that an adequate sized room can be provided for this particular occupant, as well as all the other rooms and the overall house. So if members are happy with that and wish to approve the application, we'd have an amended plan condition to update the two plans, the plan and the floor plan and the section. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have any deputations on this one? Yes, Councillor Swan, Oliver Gooch, are you here? No. Yes, sorry, you didn't. I thought you were over there. Councillor Hunt and Richard Adair called this in, that they're not here, they're not doing a deputation, is that right? Okay, like to start then with the applicant. You have 6 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Apologies, it's my first time, so quite a few points have been covered, so I'll try and get through them a little bit quicker for yourselves. What I wanted to do was address some of the concerns that were raised in the report. The first was the principal development, but as already said, there is currently 41 properties in 50 metres with no HMOs. The proposal will bring that to 2.44%, so well below the 10% needed for an imbalanced area, as per the council's report. And the property obviously won't be sandwiched between 2 HMOs or 3 or more HMOs adjacent, so seen not to be imbalanced. Also, there were some concerns about impact on residential amenity of the neighbours, and as already discussed, with C3, an individual family dwelling of, could be 3 to 7 people is no different from 3 to 6 people in a HMO. So with that being considered, concerns on pressure on local services, noise, antisocial behaviour would not represent a reason to withhold planning permission, given that it's not an over-concentration of HMOs within the surrounding area, so the impact will not be significantly harmful. In regards to parking, which I know is a concern, is currently a property is C4 with 4 or more bedrooms is required to have 2 parking spaces, and currently C3 with 4 or more bedrooms, as per parking standards, requires 2 parking spaces as well. So the application site currently has 3 bedrooms, so it's already required to provide 1.5 parking spaces, so there won't be an increase on demand there. And it's been, with it being between C4 and C3, it's not been considered there being an increase in overnight stays. So the proposal is not considered to have a detrimental impact on parking above and beyond the existing site. So refusal on a lack of parking is not reasonable or defendable, and refusal could not be sustained on appeal, was coming from the officer's report. And obviously mentioned as part of the parking standard as well, that a 4-bedroom property is expected to have 4 cycle parking spaces. So bicycle storage is on the report for the back of the house, and that is a part of the condition of this. Also, standard of accommodation, which I know is being addressed in some detail as well. So obviously, the submitted plans have been checked by officers. All bedrooms do meet the council's adopted spaces standards for single occupancy. And I know, obviously, there was the bathrooms and separate WC meet and exceed the required space standards as well. There has already been a conversation about the communal area, which is 30.77 square metres, which does represent a 3.23 square metre shortfall. But as per the council report, it is still a large communal area, and in their words, is more than compensated by the snug at 7.61 square metres. So it's still 4.38 square metres over recommended size in total. In regards to kind of waste, storage of refuse and recyclable materials, that is going to be located in the forecourt area. As a single family occupancy could have more than 3 to 6 people, it's already going to be accommodated with the current planning, and they're suggesting that an objection on waste grounds would not form a sustainable reason for refusal, and it's obviously been conditioned for me to have the refuse on the forecourt bay if it was to be impacted. There's also concerns on the impact of special protection areas, but because there isn't an increase on overnight stays, it's likely to not have a significant impact on the Solent special protection areas or result in an increased level of nitrates discharge. A couple of other issues were community infrastructure levy, but this development would not be liable for it. And also there was a conversation about human rights in the public sector equality duty, but the officers report that the recommendation would not breach the council's obligations under the Equality Act 2010. Mentions of fire safety would obviously sit with building control and be managed through them effectively. And I think just in conclusion, as per the report, it's saying that the proposed change of use is acceptable and would be in accordance with the relevant policies of the Portsmouth Plan 2012 and the objectives of National Plan and Policy Framework, NPPF of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wanting to speak in favour of the application? No. So, Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Chair. This is clearly an overdevelopment of a property, as all the bedrooms are noticeably small. The plans have been amended 6 times between June 2024 and September 2024 in an attempt to juggle 6 bedrooms in. The private sector housing report dated the 23rd of August 2024 stated that 2 bedrooms on the second floor were too small and did not meet the minimum space requirement of the 7.5 metres squared for single use. The back room was 7.29 metres squared and front room 7.04 metres squared. Now the second floor bedrooms are listed as bedroom 5, 8.31 metres squared, bedroom 4, 7.50 metres squared, and bedroom 6, 8 metres squared. It does raise a question as to where this extra space has come from. Interestingly, detailed measurements are given for all of the rooms in this proposal except for bedrooms 4, 5 and 6 on the second floor and 1 bathroom on the ground floor. In addition, bedroom 6 only has skylights, so there will be no view from this room. There is no proposed front elevation drawing with this proposal. Is this because it would show that there are no windows in this room? Bedroom 6 does not meet the minimum floor-to-ceiling height under 1.5 metres is ruled as unusable space. There must be a minimum height of 2.3 metre over 75% of the room, which this does not meet. Height is clearly marked on the drawing. If you refer to the section drawing, you can see that much of this room's ceiling is sloped and is not adequate to living space. Bedroom 6 also has a big corridor of unused space. This is approximately 1 metre squared, which also cuts down adequate living space to below standard. Bedroom 6 is clearly insufficient. The neighbours are concerned about a loss of light that this proposal will bring. The snug is labelled as 7.61 metres squared. The actual room dimensions given, 2293 by 2492, when calculated, this only comes to 5.71 squared. This is without the corridor of unusable space. This room would be too small to use as a bedroom in the future. In any case, 6 bedrooms are out of the question for this proposal as 34 metres square of communal space is required. The snug would be needed to add to the kitchen diner area of 30.77 metres squared. The committee report at 5.11 confirms this requirement, and as previously discussed, bedroom 6 is inadequate. Regarding the kitchen, the way the kitchen sink and drainer are situated at the present time, it would be very difficult to access the drainer and cupboard space underneath. Would all of the required base and wall units fit in here? It should also be noticed that there is no back access to the property as it backs onto the laundry. And finally, I would be very interested to see how the snug is being utilised if this property is passed and occupied.
Thank you very much. If there are no more deputations, I'll move to questions from members. Councillor Atwell.
And apologies, I've got a cold. After some sympathy. So apologies if I've missed this. So what's the usable space for the snug? Because I think we can all agree that corridor bit is not usable space.
Thank you, Councillor. Anticipating the question, you're referring to this effective corridor entry into the snug. Councillor Swan, I think, just referred to 571, which I think he's referring to the area, the main square area of that room. Yeah, we measured that at 7.61. Sorry, 5.73, which is very similar to the 5.71 Councillor Swan reported. So 5.73, Councillor Atwell.
Go ahead again.
And the usual question about sort of lights for bedrooms 2 and 4. What are the arrangements?
Thank you, Councillor. The 2 bedrooms down in the light wall there. They're showing as normal size, pretty good size windows facing down a standard light well. Obviously, the one higher up, sorry, these are 2 bedrooms higher up in the roof there in the extension. That's going to have much more light. The second one is an existing bedroom window in the house, so no change to the light there.
Thank you. Councillor Mason?
My concern is with bedroom 6. I would like to know, firstly, how many square metres are above 2.3 metres in height, which is one of our criteria. Secondly, I would like to know exactly how this room will be lit. What is the access to daylight? And at what height is that access to daylight?
Thank you, Councillor. Let's go on to so, Councillor, you asked for, so to recap, the 2.3 metre criterion is the shaded area, this L-shaped shaded area, and that is 3.4 square metres over the total of 10.96 for the whole GIA. And you can then see that area is the full height there and along the corridor element into the room. And then you've asked how is the room lit. There will be two roof lights here, as you can tell from the 1 and 1.5 metre, fairly low height roof lights. I dare say they could be moved to higher. I'm not aware of access requirements for building regulations and so on. You're rather high up to jump out of this window. So I don't know, I couldn't advise you on those side of things. Undoubtedly, the applicant's agent is aware and is planning for those. So the roof lights are shown in this sort of area. So a little bit lower than normal perhaps, but certainly ones you could open and look out of and enjoy the view, as well as receive a good amount of light from two large roof lights indicated there directly into the front bedroom.
I didn't catch the answer to how much floor space there is that was asked above 1.5 metres.
3.46, I think that says. Yep, 3.46.
And above 2.3?
That's 3.46 square metres.
Can't both be the same figure, can it?
So there's 3.46 over 2.3 metres height,
yep.
And then above the 1.5
yep.
metres height, 8.62.
8.62,
yep. And then there's room, that's 1.5, so there's further room as you show as the roof descends in this area here that's not measured in the floor plans but is part of the room. I think it's sensible to keep that in the room unless you boxed it off and put a little cupboard door to get into it.
Can we go back and look at room 6 again, please? Truthfully, I'm not enamoured about some of the other pieces, but in room 6 in particular. So am I understanding it that if I stand not at the base of my bed, the narrow end of the base of my bed, but at the side of my bed towards the bottom, the height at that point will be 1.5 metres high if I am not opening the window?
Yep, that area is about 1.5 metres high, right at the end of the bed. This is one indicative layout, I should just say. You know, obviously.
I have mentally been relaying the room to find out a combination that I might find acceptable without success so far. That's a child's room. I lived in a room that size, but only until I became 6 foot tall and 12 years old. You can see which way my vote is going.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I just can't see room 6 as being livable for an adult. I just can't see it.
I'm afraid I propose rejection on the grounds that bedroom 6 does not provide adequate living space for an adult. In that, if you look at the bottom of the bed, you would have to kneel to be able to make that bed. Also, although there is 3.46 metres of living space, square metres of living space above the height of 2.3 metres, a considerable amount of that is in corridor rather than is actually living space in the room. I do not consider this to be adequate living space, and I propose rejection on those grounds.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Atwell and Councillor Candish. You think you were first, Councillor Candish. Are there any alternative recommendations? Go ahead.
I've got a slightly different view. Looking at the proposal in front of us and looking at it as a 6-bed HMO, as opposed to some of the other monstrosities that we pass in this city, I personally believe that we should be more encouraged to pass the smaller HMOs than the larger ones. And when we look at bedroom 6, having been a teenager in a very similar sort of bedroom, it was perfectly livable. It has got one of the largest floor areas of that room, and if I was to rent that property, that would probably be the room I would prefer over the others. So I would actually look to passing the proposal.
Seconder for a proposal to give planning permission to this application? There's not. So can we move to raise...
Chairman, just as an alternative to consider, if members weren't happy with the 6, if the applicant might prefer still perhaps to gain a planning consent for 5, that's just a potential alternative that members like to consider if they're not happy with the 6.
Yeah, I'd not be happy to consider the 6, because, the option of a 5 at this point in time, because as I went with the other ones, this has been put in as an application for 6. Yes, maybe 5, it would start to become more acceptable, but I think we shouldn't be encouraging changing of applications as they come. So I would not support that option on the table today.
Councillor Mason?
I think this is a very good application for 5. It is just that I do not think that bedroom 6 is acceptable to us. So I would be quite happy with 5, but it's a question of whether it is sensible to change a planning application on the hoof, as it were, and I am not wildly enthusiastic about that.
I'd be happy to second the application for 5, because this one does say between 3 and 6. It doesn't. It is quite flexible. Providing we can put a condition on limiting it to 5, Simon, then is that a valid thing we can do?
It is. It's obviously not what the applicant has applied for. Well, they've applied for a use class, C4, which is 3 to 6 individuals, but they've clearly shown 6. But as I said, I would imagine they would rather have a consent for 5 than potentially no consent at all. It's up to the committee.
So you'd be happy to see a condition for 5?
We could construct a condition which would prevent occupation of the bedroom 6 as a bedroom.
If you could draw that up for us, would that be helpful, Councillor Mason?
I believe it was Councillor Candish who recommended 5 and would propose that, with you seconding, ma'am.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You proposed 5 and I seconded it.
I think actually Councillor Mason didn't really put his feet down firmly on either side, but was saying that he was minded to support my thought, which was not to allow it to be switched from 6 to 5. I'll be honest, I'm not going to fight this militantly if the rest of the committee think that it's a good 5. I'm just nervous about the principle we are setting, because then we're starting to negotiate with the room, which I think is a poor way to do planning. But if we view it as a kind of a one-off because we are where we are, I will not lay down in front of the committee's truck.
Okay, on the assurance that this will not be used as a precedent in other cases, I would propose then that we accept this as a 5-bedroom HMO.
In that the condition proposed on the SMAT would be changed from 6 to 5. Is that acceptable in the...
Well, I assume it has to be that we accept but we accept it for 5 persons. And so it is, the number is on persons rather than on rooms.
Yes, you just need to make sure that for a condition it's got to be necessary, relevant to planning, relevant to the development permitted, enforceable, precise and reasonable in all other aspects. I think the tests would be met by putting a condition on for 5.
Thank you, Juliet. So we have a proposal to accept this subject to it being having a condition to limit the occupancy to 5 people. There is a suggested condition on the SMAT that we would adapt for that purpose. We have a seconder for that. Thank you very much.
So, Chair, sorry, could I make sure I properly understood you? So the extra condition for the use of the snug for communal purposes only, and then bedroom 6 not to be used as a bedroom.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, Shah had his hand up.
Actually, what I was saying is we are here as a committee not to decide how many bedrooms we can allow, we can't allow. We should just, if we are not agree with bedroom 6, we should just not to approve it and leave it to the applicant to do that work, not us to do.
Is that an alternative?
I think what Councillor Candlish said, I will go with him, and I think I'm saying the same thing.
Councillor Candlish eventually came in to second the proposal that we approve 5. I think we've all recognised the case that you're making. Should I accept that as an alternative recommendation? In other words, refuse because we don't want that 6th bedroom to be used. Do I have a seconder for that? A seconder, thank you very much. So we have 2 alternative proposals here, and I will take the first one, which is approving this for a maximum of 5 people, and the snug not to be turned into a bedroom. Would all those in favour put their hands up? All those against? Okay. Do we need to go to the alternative vote, the other voters? Well,
No,
Juliet, or not?
no, Chair, you've got a casting vote. It was, oh, sorry, hold on. Can we just check the numbers?
I had 5 and 4.
5 and 4.
Sorry, I thought it was 5 and 5. Sorry. So that motion was passed.
And we don't need to go to the other motion?
No.
Thank you very much. You have your planning permission for 5 individuals only. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is item Hayling Avenue, isn't it? Yep. 158 Hayling Avenue. We're going to take a break in order to finish this with refreshments and a comfort break. Do you want me to take that break now, or do you want me to take it after this other application? Which would we prefer, members? Now or? Okay, you have 20 minutes to have a sandwich, do whatever else you want to do. We'll reconvene at 1:45. Thank you for your help in this first half of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, 158 Hayling Avenue, change of use from a C3 dwelling house to a C3 or C4 house of multiple occupation. So that is seeking the flexible 10-year consent where the owner, if granted planning permission, does not have to reapply for changing between C3 and C4 backwards and forwards as they wish in that 10-year period. Members, we brought this to committee because of a request from Councillor Sanders. We've heard the reason for his absence today, and due to 31 letters of objection. Just to locate you, we're in the Baffins ward. Baffins Pond is just to the northwest, so the site is here on the corner. And there's some courts and the Baffins Pond park just to the northwest to help locate you. So we're in an end terrace, back garden running down the side of the road, and then a alleyway car garage type back access there. Here we are. It's the site under construction. Under construction in the sense of dormer and window you can see going in, and the prior approval rear extension is also is under construction. With respect to the mixed and balanced community, there are no other HMOs in this 50-metre radius of the application site. If this application is approved, it would take the number to 2.56, well below the 10% threshold with respect to policy PCS 20 and the HMO supplementary planning document. You've seen a photograph of the existing property on the side there, side door. There'll be some rearrangements at the side just to tidy up that part of the external elevations, and then the prior approval large rear extension, single story, and then the rear dormer window as well under permitted development rights. Existing floor plans. There's the front door. This is the bit that will be tidied up and taken away, but retaining the side bay window. Bedrooms upstairs, fairly spacious property. Here's the proposed ground floor plan. So this is the large ground floor prior approval extension. The front door, shared WC and an extra dining room. And then 5 bedrooms upstairs, a shared bathroom on the first floor, and a shared a shower room in the second floor. The rear of the site, so you can see the dormer under construction and preparation for the construction of the prior approval rear extension. Here's the alleyway, let's call it, the rear of the site, giving access along here to the rear of the properties. That is 3.2 metres wide from recollection. This is prior to construction of this garage. This is the same corner, there's the alleyway. This, well, it probably really isn't a garage because of the restricted width. I don't think that even the smallest of cars could actually get in and drive into either of these doors. And they've also been built up by 2-3 courses of brick from the ground level. So conversations with the applicant, I don't believe they were intended originally as garaging. It's more storage space. So members may have seen the condition at the end of the report. In the event of a consent, we propose that this outbuilding only be used for storage, bike storage, bins, in conjunction and ancillary to the domestic use of the property, be it C3, C4. There's the back garden looking at the north elevation of the store, and that's the door you can see, so it's easily accessible from within the garden and the property as well, probably to get in and out for your bikes, for example. In terms of the room sizes, we've got a communal living space of 43.65 square metres way above the 34 required for 6 persons. The applicants have proposed 5 persons, but the property is clearly big enough to accommodate 6 by any quantitative or qualitative measures. So quantitatively, if there were 6 people, this should be 34, and it's 43.65, as I say. So the dining room shown on the ground floor is purely an extra, which the applicant wishes to provide. That could be used as a bedroom, were he or she to change their minds, because there are only 5 other bedrooms, and the property, in terms of its bathrooms, shower rooms, communal space, and all the bedrooms, could easily accommodate that. Upstairs, the bedrooms required to be 6.51, but they are all well in excess of that, at 11.5, 9.5, and so on. Ditto in the roof space. So we've rehearsed that in the report for completeness, as neighbours might be expecting it to be 5 occupiers, and indeed the applicant, if granted consent, may only occupy it for 5, but it could be occupied for 6 for the reasons I've explained. Lastly, moving on to the supplementary matters, we wanted to identify the same issue of ceiling heights. Thankfully, with this application, the matter is much less pressurised than the previous application. So here, this bedroom 4, they have amended the plan slightly to add a little square in here. I'll just take you back to the previous proposal. So you had a slight cut in at the top of the stairs there. They haven't needed to add that space, but they have. So this bedroom is now 11.57 over 1.5 metres height. So that massively exceeds the 6.51 required. All of the room is over 1.5 metres height. The 2.3 ceiling height, covering 75% of the area, is that criterion. Here we've got it at 65, I think that says. 65, yes. So slightly under the criterion, but I return you to the discussion earlier on about the sense of judgment around a room. This room has a very large size, much larger than 6.51, and the applicant has shown just one space where the bed could go, but really it could be pretty much anywhere in that room. It's got a good arrangement and disposition, in the officer's opinion. It will be set up here in the roof space with good height. So were members to approve the application, we would need an amended plan number to deal with the revision that has arrived since publication of the report, this slightly larger bedroom 4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Deputations. Do we have any deputations on this one? I don't think we do. Yourself, yes. Mr. Gooch. Go ahead.
Hi, so yeah, I'm Nick from Row Lane Homes. We're specialists within HMOs, and between myself and my business partner, who unfortunately can't be here today, we have a number of HMOs in the Portsmouth area. We pride ourselves in what we do, and that's providing excellent high specification quality living for a range of tenants living in Portsmouth. 158 Hayling, although it could be argued was a residential dwelling, was actually a dilapidated house that no one wanted to purchase. We've taken this building back to brick, adding an extension and going to give it a full refurb, bringing the building back to life to a very high spec. All of this will be either completed under permit development or through approved planning, which we have. The cost of all of this is in the region of 170,000 and complies with all licensing and building regs. On top of this, under PD, we have built a garage to store bikes in. And there is also plenty of side access for bins, so they won't be left on the road. However, this is for 5 people, so it should be no more waste than if there was a family of 5 or 6 that live there. The property plans exceed the standards required for HMO, with plenty of communal space big enough for a HMO much larger than 5 people. And if this is approved, we'll bring the HMOs in the area to 2.56%, well below the 10% threshold that Portsmouth Council stipulates. Only today I've seen there is an issue with bedroom 4 with regards to height. We did discuss this when the officer came out and said we can fix this by reducing the room size from 11.5 square metres to 7.5 square metres, but was advised it was not in anyone's interest to reduce the room size. So if this is considered an issue, either we can do this, which means reducing it, as I said, from 11.5 to 7.5, as this would fit within the height limits, but we just lose some space for extra furniture, such as chest of drawers, etc. Alternatively, we do have the dining room downstairs, which we would like to ideally keep a dining room, but if it was an issue, we could move that and change that to room 4. Either way, though, we can make sure it complies with the planning regulations if this is deemed an issue. So I hope it's not used against the recommendation for approval. I understand there are concerns over antisocial behaviour, but we've had no complaints that I can think of with regards to any of our other properties, and if we did, we would act accordingly. We also stipulate within our tenancies that any additional people are not allowed to stay overnight to keep in accordance with licensing. Whilst this is obviously hard to fully manage without being at the property 24/7, we hope it at least acts as a deterrent, and this is followed up verbally on a regular basis by our property manager, as well as when we carry out inspections. I believe another issue was noise. We generally do care about our neighbours. It's not in anyone's interest to annoy anyone, and we appreciate their concerns. We install brand new double glazing window, reducing noise, but on top of this, with all our properties at our own costs of thousands of pounds, is not required by any building regs. We actually install a steel perimeter around the whole inside of the house after taking it back to brick, with 50 to 60 mil of insulation. Not only does this prevent noise pollution, it also keeps the heat in. That with automatic lights also brings down energy costs. Parking is another concern. Most of our tenants rely on public transport or cycle, and as such would not have any more vehicles than what the potential of a 4 to 6 person family would bring if it was kept residential. And as said, we have built an outbuilding garage, which we've purposely left for bikes and storage, and as this is what we anticipate the tenants will be using mostly for their transportation. Hopefully, of what I've said, along with the planner's report, you will take all of this into consideration for approval. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. There are no other deputations, I don't think. Nothing to read out or anything like that. So we'll move directly to questions from members. Councillor Atwell.
Thank you, Chair. If what does in respect of bathrooms, how many bathrooms does PCC require if this were a 6-bedroom HMO?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it does change between 5 to 6. If it's 5 persons, it's 1 bathroom, and you can have a separate WC. With 6 persons, it's 2 bathrooms and 2 separate WCs. One of those can be inside one of the bathrooms. So this one has 2 bath/shower rooms and a separate WC. So it complies with the standards for 6.
Thank you. Any further questions, members? Right, so we move to comments and move towards a decision. Councillor Mason.
This is a very suitable house for a house in multiple occupation. All the rooms are of the right size, and indeed the one where bedroom 4 on the 2nd floor, the amount of room which is 2.3 metres and above is above our 6.151 square metres, and so that is perfectly acceptable, and so I would propose the officer's recommendation.
Is there a second for that? Councillor Vallely, thank you. Are there any alternative proposals? Right, we'll move to a vote in favour of the approving this application, subject to the conditions in the officer's report. Have you counted 4? And against? Is anybody against? Any abstentions? 2. Thank you very much.
Chair, just with the extra, the amended plan number, just for clarity, for the for the new plan. That's all.
Thank you very much. You'll be able to incorporate that, will you? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to item 31 Southbourne Avenue, page 55. This is for change of use from dwelling house class 3 to house in multiple occupation class 4 with installation of rear dormer and changes to fenestration. And those installation of rear dormer and changes to fenestration are part of the application, are they?
Chair, it's one of those scenarios where it was included in the development description, but actually the dormer is permitted development. The changes to fenestration is a matter of fact and degree and judgment as to whether or not it requires planning permission. So for completeness, it's in there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So an application at 31 Bourne Avenue in Drayton and Farlington Ward with a change of use from a dwelling house class C3 to a house in multiple occupation class C4 with installation of rear dormer and changes to fenestration. Oh.
Got a small problem with the technology. I can. Oh, here we are. Thank you.
No. I don't know. I'm not very good with these things. There we go. Thank you. And apologies. Right, so 31 Southbourne Avenue, change of use from dwelling house to class C3, small HMO. The application has come to planning committee due to 15 objections set out in the officer report. We're at the corner of the road, so the front gardens are quite narrow, leading to an open, more splayed back garden, semi-detached house with a little driveway leading to an existing garage at the back. Here's the property as was. As the driveway to the garage, you can see shared driveway with a neighbour to the back and narrow front garden split between the two halves of the semi. That's been changed like this now. And there is the view down the back garden. Here is the rear dormer already installed. I've got some internal photographs a bit later on in the presentation, so rather than jump around, I'll continue. Moving on to the local balance of residential uses, there are no current HMOs in the 50-metre radius. So if approved, this will provide 1 out of 40, which is a percentage of 2.5, so well within the 10% balance considered to keep the community residential balance in as a balanced community, I should say. So no objections on those points from officers. There's the application site in the middle there. Existing plans, it's already an open plan dining living room, a kitchen, built-in cupboard and a store off the kitchen. a WC under the stairs, and then 3 bedrooms upstairs, lots of inbuilt wardrobes, cupboards, etc. The proposal is to retain the living dining room downstairs, retain the WC. The store access of the kitchen has been is re-insulated, and these are the changes in fenestration mentioned in the development description. So if I take you back one, it's not double skinned, for example, here. So that's being insulated and upgraded to make it a proper, better part of the house and part of the kitchen. That's measured as part of the kitchen. And then going upstairs, 3 bedrooms, a shared bathroom, retaining the built-in cupboards and wardrobes. And then in the roof space, this is new accommodation, 2 bedrooms and a shared shower room. So we have 5 bedrooms indicated. As members know, Class C4 use allows up to 6. In this instance, if granted planning consent, the applicant has indicated 5 single occupancy rooms, but they could actually have 6 because 2 of the bedrooms 2 and 5, there's 5, and there's 2 are way above the minimum standard of 6.51, that these are past 12 metres. So one of those bedrooms, 2 or 5, could be occupied by 2 people with respect to those room sizes. Then with respect to the communal space downstairs, again, rather than having just one communal space, as we see in a lot of the applications, or 3 individual rooms, we've got 2 here that probably were 2 rooms originally. You can see a nib of a wall there. That's probably knocked through at some point. And then a separate kitchen. So as we've rehearsed in the report, if you were to have a separate dining and separate living room, which is a scenario set out in your SPD, there would be 14 square metres each, 28 square metres. This room is 27.42, so just shy of a half a square metre, 0.58 square metre. The kitchen here, a separate kitchen should be 11 square metres. This is 11.67, so just beyond the minimum size. And then we've looked at the wider property. As I say, 2 of the bedrooms are particularly large, and all the other bedrooms are also well beyond the 6.51. They're at 9 and 8 and 9 square metres. So we felt in the round we were happy with the combination of communal space, meeting your guidelines just on the nose, and then the bedrooms well exceeding that, whether it be for 5 or 6 people. So we were happy to recommend consent on those grounds. I'll just show the rooms for completeness. Existing elevations, proposed elevations. Here's the fenestration to the store of the kitchen for completeness. There's the dormer window. A section through. This is the main living dining room that we saw before. So that's looking out into the back garden. This is turning around, looking the other way towards the street. First floor bathroom and room to bedroom, door to bedroom 3. And then clearly not long after construction for lots of the rooms and tidying up and refurbishment, these are the various rooms, and you can see the lights and views and windows and so on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Mason.
Are all the rooms in the roof of an adequate height?
Thank you. Bedroom 4 is all full height, being the rear dormer full height overlooking the back garden. And so the rear part of bedroom 5 is also full height. Just starting to, ceiling height starts to reduce in this part of bedroom 5, running down. But as you can see, the room at 12 square metres, 12.25 square metres we measured, it only needs to be 6.5. So if the applicant fenced off here, you have a room size that met your standard. So rather than do that arbitrarily, they've provided extra space.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, shall we move towards comment and decision?
Thank you. So just looking at the proposal, I am not a fan of overdeveloped HMOs, certainly not within this city, and I do know the restraints and the pressures that it puts on parking, space, amenities and other things, but before me I see a property which I don't believe is overdeveloped. It looks like it's got parking, it looks like it's got room. I think that we support the officer's proposal to pass.
So you're making a recommendation.
Yeah.
Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Vallely, that's fine. I think you just got there first. If there are no other proposals, shall we move to a vote on that one? All those in favour of approving planning permission for this property? All those, have you got the, you counted all hands? All those against? One. All those abstaining? You have your planning permission for that HMO there. Thank you very much. Shall we move now to item number 23 Telephone Road. Page 79. Item 9, page 79. Change of use from house in multiple occupation to a 7-bed, 7-person house in multiple occupation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you've described, this is an existing property, already a HMO, and the proposal is to increase to a 7-bed, 7-person HMO. Just to show you the location, so we are in Fratton Ward, and we're just south of, Central Southsea Ward, and we're just south of Fratton Station. Yes, as described, the property is already a HMO, very typical of the housing stock in this particular area. There's a mid-terrace property. In terms of the HMO balance in the area, as we've already described, it is an existing HMO. In terms of the numbers in the area, 37% are HMOs within that 50-metre radius. However, that balance does not change as a result of the application. Just looking at the existing property, so very, very typical of the properties in the area with its 2-storey rear wing. And then the layout, so as an existing 5-bed HMO, we've got 2 bedrooms to the ground floor and then 3 to the first floor. So again, as in other situations, the proposal is just for the change of use, and the property's shown to be extended. The rear extension has planning approval under what's known as a prior approval. Consent granted earlier this year for a single-storey rear extension, and then the loft works are permitted development on their own. So those works don't need planning permission and don't form part of the proposal. This is a proposed layout, so two bedrooms to the loft. Still there's 3 bedrooms at first floor and then 2 beds at the ground floor with the extended kitchen dining area to the rear. And just a couple of photos show you that rear light well for the the rear-facing windows and the front of the property. Just to emphasise the point in the report, Chair, of our professional view that this is not actually a material change of use to go from the 5 to the 7, and the appeal decisions that support that interpretation. And just to emphasise the point that our professional view is the applicant does have a fallback position to carry out the works without needing planning permission, hence why the recommendation is simply to approve. Just one update from the SMAP, the update. Further objection from Councillor Garada, hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. And just to cover the points, the objections raised are all addressed in the officer report. And so we recommend this application for approval to you.
Thank you. Members, just to remind everybody, this is one where we need first to decide as a committee whether this needs a planning approval. This is the reason that this has been called in by Councillor Vernon Jackson. So we have to first decide whether we need to have a discussion and to approve it for planning permission or not. Shall we do that first before having questions, or do you want to do questions first?
I think we have to decide first, don't we?
Well, we do it.
Chair, I think we've got a deputation to
Yes,
come first.
I understand that, but we've got to do the decision about. We'll do the deputation first. That's fine.
You do it through the
No, you're not. Go ahead. We have a deputation from Applecore. That's fine.
Thank you. So, firstly, again, I feel I need to stress we are architects. I'm here representing our client as the company who has produced a set of drawings for planning, building control and licensing. I'm constantly seeing objections that seem to insinuate that at Applecore we own every HMO in the city. This is most definitely not the case. Again, as I've stressed before, we offer our clients a service that either stops with the drawings or we are involved throughout the project in a project management capacity. Our clients come to us because we are constantly changing and adapting to ensure our designs are always fully compliant with all of the different legislations, and our clients can be confident they're receiving drawings that can actually be built as drawn. We regularly have clients come to us mid-build with a scheme designed for planning that is ultimately not going to obtain either building control and or licensing sign-off, and I can assure you that the schemes we present to you at planning stage is the design it will remain. We work extremely hard as a team to ensure we all stay at the forefront of the changes to the different regimes. We are extremely passionate that all of our clients are left with a well-designed property that will provide a good standard of living for those who choose to live in shared homes. And as stated before, everything Applecore represent today and every day complies with the policies and criteria set by legislation. Otherwise, I would not be here. 93 Telephone Road is an existing C4 property that has been in HMO use prior to the Article 4 being implemented in 2011. Our client is looking to add 2 further bedrooms in the loft and extend the existing communal area to increase the shared facilities. As part of this, they will be upgrading all the plumbing and electrics and bring the building up to comply with modern day building regs. I note 5 of the 7 objections on this application are copy and paste objections from residents in North End who seem to have great concerns about how the parking and drainage and sewage issues in Southsea will affect them in North End. 1 from someone who has not shared an address, and 1 from a local councillor who is concerned about the HMO density. I feel it is important to stress that this property is currently running as a 5-bed HMO and has been for over 10 years. One objector incorrectly states this property became a HMO in 2023, and this is not the case. The historic use of the C4 use was regularised through a plan application in 2023. I feel that the absence of any neighbour objections from Telephone Road or the immediate vicinity speaks volumes as to how this HMO is currently being managed. If there were problems from this property, I would be expecting to see a number of objections from actual neighbours who may be fearing the increase would have a further impact, and the lack of relevant local objections, in my view, speaks volumes. With regards to the plans, the property is currently a 5-bed HMO with only 20 square metres of communal living area and 1 shared bathroom and 1 WC. The sanitary provision is the bare minimum required for a 5-bedroom HMO. We are proposing to add 2 bedrooms, and all bedroom sizes will range from 10 to 13.33 square metres, and all will benefit from en-suites. The required communal area in all bedrooms exceed 10 square metres, 22.5, and this proposed enlarged communal area will provide 29.7, which significantly exceeds that requirement. The communal area also has the benefit of a large roof lantern for additional light. There is an additional proposed ground floor WC for the comfort of the residents. The property is being renovated at significant cost to enhance the living standards for all of the 7 proposed residents. The application is fully compliant with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan and also complies with the Housing Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning Document 2019. The planning officer recommends this fully compliant application for approval today, and I ask that you all fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no other deputations today. The first thing then that we have to do is to decide whether this requires a planning application. Do we have a proposal? Peter?
I'm going to propose that it does, and that it should come before the committee as the development potentially creates a negative amenity for residents in the area due to the heavy concentration of HMOs and the risk of exceptional problems in respect of parking, rubbish and sewage. For these reasons, the local planning committee should look at this proposal.
Oh, are you happy with wording of that, Juliet? Simon?
Negative concentration.
Yes, sorry, I was just double checking with Mr. Taylor. Yeah, fine to proceed, Chair. Thank you.
Do I have any proposal that says we don't require a planning permission? No? Okay, so we'll proceed to vote on whether or not we require a planning permission. All those in favour of you considering this as a planning application?
That's unanimous.
Now we'll move on to questions about this application that's been made, as we've already had deputations and questions from members, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one, actually. It's already 2.5 times more HMOs in the area we got, and we are adding not HMO as a name, but we are adding more people to the area. So we are talking about the number of residents living there. We are not adding an extra property, but we are adding an extra property because you are adding 2 more bedrooms and 2 more people. So I don't think this is a useful policy to add more people just to show we don't have another HMO. So I'm not in favor of having or adding more people to the same property.
Policy at the moment talks about numbers of HMOs. Simon, would you like to answer that question, please?
Chair, no, you're entirely correct. So in terms of the balanced communities test in the HMO, it just simply talks about numerical numbers of HMOs, not necessarily the size or the density, intensity of those particular ones. So it's simply a test about the number of HMOs within that 50-metre radius. We accept we're already over in this particular area, well over. We wouldn't recommend approval for an additional one, but where it's pre-existing, it complies with policy.
Thank you very much. Any more questions?
Just for clarification, the approval before was for up to 6 individuals, and now they're seeking for 7, so it's just 1 extra individual, even though it's 2 rooms.
Yes. So the property is already lawfully operating as a C4, a small-scale HMO, so that's a maximum of 6 people. This is taking us up potentially to 7. So yes, the existing property could be used to set up to 6.
I think we understood from the deputation that were 5 people there before, but it could have been 6, and it's now proposed to be limited at 7.
I mean, my obvious comments here are the policies and the laws are as they are, and I can see no basis on which to refuse this. Needlessly refusing it will cause the council costs in making the appeal, which it will then lose, and I don't see any reason why I should inflict that cost upon the good citizens of Portsmouth. On that basis, I will be supporting this development.
Yeah, I would. Looking at the existing plans for up to 6 people and the standard of living, I accept the fact that we are putting one more person within the property. However, the improvements that it's going to bring for the standard of living for everybody within the property, I believe the benefits definitely outweigh the deficits. So I would support Peter's proposal.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So similar to the previous item, again, this is an application to increase an existing house of multiple occupation to a seven-person house, HMO. So location-wise, we are in, let's just double-check my notes. We are in Frampton Ward, and we're just north of the cemetery, so just bottom left of the OS map is the Pembridge Junior School. So existing property, and just to note, does appear to be a side gate which would give access down the side of the property to any bikes or to the rear. In terms of the balance of communities and the number of HMOs in the area, again, as an existing HMO, we do not increase the density as a result of this proposal, and we are at 5% within the 50-metre area. And so this is the existing layout of the property. Property's already been extended and enlarged. And the sole difference in this case is on the ground left floor, left-hand side on the ground floor plan. You've got a living space which will be converted to a bedroom. So if you just show on the, just in there. So just moving on to the proposed plan. So in effect, no change over the rest of the property, and then just showing you how that will become bed 2, what's the existing living space in the property. And then no changes, physical changes to the property, either proposed or intended to be undertaken as permitted development. Again, as per the previous item, our view is does not constitute material change of use, simply changing that one living space to a bedroom. We're satisfied, having gone through the report, that the room sizes meet the guidance as set out in our adopted policies and supplementary planning guidance. Just to clarify a point about the open plan living dining space, the HMO licensing guidance confirms that where there's a separate utility area and it's used to house fixed equipment like washing machine, dryers, etc., and there's no restricted access to the space, then this can be considered as contributing to the available communal space. So, I mean, if you just drop back to the proposed floor plan. And you might not be able to read this, but in terms of the sort of the top of the L-shaped living space up there, so there's some number of boxes shown, and so they are in order from top to bottom, indicated as tumble dryer, washing machine, and then 2 fridge freezer spaces. So that would seem to sit very much within the utility description in the HMO licensing guidance. And then on the basis of the proposed recommendation, it's recommended for approval, as I say, with our view that it does not need planning permission in this instance. We don't recommend any conditions because our view is that there is a fallback position for the applicant to carry out the works without planning permission. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, and just to remind everybody, if we choose to approve this application that we have now decided needs a permission, we would draw up conditions in order to add them and agree those with the planning officers. Any further questions? I'd like to ask a quick question. On page 93, there's a quite useful plan that enlarges the plan for the ground floor that we've seen before. I'd be grateful to learn the size of the actual kitchen dining room, the square area at the bottom of the plan, and also the size of the utility corridor that there is there. In this plan here on page 93, that does look quite a good width as well, so it does look quite a substantial space adding to the amenity of the ground floor. But if you could elaborate on that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So if I don't know if you got the pointer handy, Simon. If you measure the box, in effect, the square at the bottom of that kitchen, living diner, that area, running straight across at the, in effect, the top level of the kitchen units, comes out at approximately 20 square metres, and then the sort of corridor, the wider part of the corridor going north, comes out about 7 square metres. So as previously explained, as that's entitled to be counted as one, that takes us well over the 22 and a half square metres we need for this particular use, as the remaining bedrooms are all in excess of 10 square metres.
And am I right that if I now look at that, what you've called a corridor, I didn't call it that, but it is wider than the actual corridors in the house, which isn't quite clear from the other plan?
Yes, it is. Yes, there's a little dog leg where the proposed sort of tumble dryer is shown. I should have better described that as a galley. That would be a better description for that.
And there are
Chair.
cupboards there as well. Is that right?
Indeed, storage cupboards there, as well as the fridge freezer, etc.
And am I right that the width of that area is wider than the corridor coming in from the front door?
Yes, I can't give you the exact measurements, but looking by eye, that is clearly wider because the corridor that's coming in from the front door is only the door's width, and as you can see, as the door into the kitchen dining has partly door and partly stud wall in there.
In your washing machine with washing there, you would be able to stand aside from a bicycle coming through?
Potentially, yes, Chair. Also, having looked at some of the appeal decisions that we've had, inspectors have taken a view that that's a very sort of fleeting conflict, and you know, just unlucky if you're, like you say, emptying the dishwasher washing machine at the same time as someone's coming through with a bike. Also, in this instance, we do believe that there is a side access for someone to take a bike down past the side of the property as well.
I think that helps considerably. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Sure.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. Is this wide enough to take the bike to the back of the property. I assume the bike's storage is on the back of the property?
Yes, I think we've just been told that there is a side access, so you could get straight from the road into the bike storage without having to go through in this instance. Is that right?
That certainly seems to be the case, Chair, yes. We're just highlighting what appears to be the side gate there. Yeah, it is an end of terrace property.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, members? We move to discussion and a comment and decision. Nick?
Looking at the proposal and seeing many of these come in front of us in the past, I don't know whether I have been duped in some way or whether there isn't a massive need for the secondary living room stroke snug with adjoining ensuite that we see come up time and time again. I had hoped that there would be more call for a living room with ensuite, but clearly it hasn't in this case. So I can't really see anything that I can oppose it on or any real grounds. So unfortunately, as silly as I seem, I think I'm going to have to support the officer's recommendations.
Are there any seconders for that? Mary?
That's for unconditional planning permission.
We would need to add conditions to that because at the moment there aren't any recommended.
Chair, the recommendation from officers is that planning permission is not needed, so it's unconditional. I'm not.
No, we need to add conditions to this.
Well,
Chair, shall we whip through our quick, we need planning permission as a local committee piece and have a vote? Because then we could put conditions on it.
It's the same scenario as the previous application, Chair.
I thought we'd done that. Okay, let's first of all decide whether or not we need to. I'm so sorry. I thought we'd done it. First, then, do we think this needs planning permission? Would you like to?
Chair, I'm happy to propose and provide some words.
Good.
And for speed, would we like to start with the words I used for the last one? We have to say them. I believe this proposal should come before the committee as the development potentially creates a negative amenity for local residents in the area due to the concentration of HMOs and the risks of exceptional problems in respect of parking, rubbish and sewage for this specific property. For these reasons, I believe the local planning committee, ourselves, should look at this proposal.
Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Shah. So we move now to say whether we think this application needs permission. All those in favour raise their hands.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Now, we're not going to go through the discussion we had before, and I'm sorry I had a kind of Groundhog Day moment where I thought we'd done that. We had a proposal to approve the planning application from Nick, and somebody was going to second that. Mary, you've seconded it. Thank you. Are there any other proposals about this application? No? Can I ask you to raise your hands if you... Now, we need conditions.
Yes.
So the conditions that we need are the ones that are to do with the...
Chair, would it help if... Yeah, would you...
Yes, it would help greatly. Thank you very much.
Yes, so, and it should say this, it should apply to the previous application. So the first is a 3-year commencement, which is standard condition, standard condition for the plans, plans, approved plans, provision of the bike store, and also our standard condition on water efficiency.
Yes.
And 106 for the SPA.
And the SPA? Site.
Yes, thank you, yes. I'm grateful for legal officer's advice, yes, as well.
And is there a nitrates condition?
We've got the 106 covering it. We could have the condition as well.
106 covers it. Okay. So subject to those conditions, are you recommending that subject to... Thank you, Nick. And we have a second. Mary, are you happy to do that still? There are no other approvals, no other opinions, no other motions. Let's put up your hands, please raise your hands to show that you want to give this conditional planning permission. Thank you. Is there anybody wanting to refuse this permission, this application? Vote against? No. Are there any abstentions? 2. Thank you.
Planning permission is granted.
Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to the application for '30 Walker Road.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application at 30 Walker Road in Nelson Ward for a 2-storey side extension, solar panels and a single-storey lean-to canopy to a domestic property. It's coming to the Planning Committee because the applicant is an employee of the council. So we are quite close to Tipner East site and Twyford Road area, and the first application, indeed, Twyford Avenue, sorry, is just about 100 metres away to the southeast. So we're at the other end of Walker Road here. We're at the end of this island of houses, so this is a triangular corner plot as existing. So in the street, you can see how the building has built steps back, with the architectural detailing on the coins, for example, over the front door. The face on Walker Road here was refaced not so long ago, deterioration of wall ties and crumbling of architectural features. So that has got a new, pretty smartly done brick elevation there. Please notice the variation in the street as well in terms of what were, I think, all brick-faced terraced houses now are, like many streets, a variety and medley of different materials, of tile hangings, pebble dashed, render and other materials. So a good deal of variety in this area. I mention that because the materials for this development are not brick completely. So you've got the cutaway, if you like, here, and that is where the proposal would be to fill in this cutaway almost to the line of the green bin here. So the roof, the main roof here, would come across and meet the western elevation at that point. Just another photograph bang opposite, so you've got a mixture of painted brick render, stone cladding, tile cladding, etc. There is the rear of the application property. I should have referred to the front in terms of the vehicle crossover is here, and so parking is available in the apex of the triangle off-street car parking, which you can see in that area, and the back garden is up in the northern side there. So here's the cutaway we've seen before with the front door. So the proposal is to have the 2-storey element filling in that, squaring it off effectively, to provide a garage at ground floor, accessed off the forecourt and onto the road. And then at first floor, there was a bathroom and another bedroom. And you can see the footprint of a canopy here, built out over the garage door and the newly positioned front door. So there's the cutout again. This is the roof plan existing. That's the cutout, and I said how the main body of the roof will be then extended across to square off the roof. You can see the solar panels there and some roof lights into, because of the extension to the roof, quite a generous loft space would be provided, and we've had an extra plan that's mentioned in the SMAT. I'll mention it now, just purely showing the position of the loft access hatch to get up into the larger roof space now. So this is the Walker Road elevation. I'll call this the front elevation. So you can see the cutaway there above the door. That's the cutaway, so to speak. So it'd be squaring it off there. This is the refaced area you've seen in the first photograph, that they would extend across with the same brick, of course, to match ground floor level. That's a high-level window into the side of the garage. And then I mentioned before a different material approach to this element. To mark the corner, this is a standing seam metal cladding arrangement, slightly proud of the brick elevation to give it that extra emphasis, and also probably as a drip line, construction, sensible reasons, tiles and solar panels above. So the side elevation is facing effectively their little bit of front garden, the triangular parking area. No, I'm sorry, this is the rear elevation. You can see the canopy going in. I'll take you around to here we are. The side elevation currently, there's the cutaway. That would be the filling it in or bringing it out to here. Again, so the standing seam wraps around the corner. Some light going into the roof, along with the roof lights. And this is the canopy built out over the garage door and over the new front door. So the applicant has chosen to go for a different material approach. The red brick would match, obviously, the area and the facing brick already provided on the front elevation here. I've shown you at the first photograph. And then has chosen an emphasising architectural feature of the standard seam, standing metal seam above. You may have noticed we've got conditions to make sure the quality of that, if approved, is controlled by officers with all the details. Looks like it's well designed and attention paid to by the architects, and we'd simply see that through in terms of the detailing of the finishing to make sure, indeed, the end effect is positive. Here's the same example you saw earlier with the Twyford Avenue application, the Doyle Avenue corner, where you've got something similar, just as a local example. And we saw in the first application as well the variety of forms and materials in the area. So that is the application that we're able to recommend positively to you.
Thank you very much. I don't think we have any deputations at all on this one. Can we move straight to questions? If there are no questions, shall we move to comments and decision? Chris?
Chair, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation to grant conditional permission.
Seconded by yourself, thank you. Derek. Then all those in favour of granting this conditional planning application?
That's unanimous. Planning permission is granted.
Thank you very much. I think that's us done for today, but before we close the public meeting, I'd just like to check that the application that we considered, not the last one before that, we did put the conditions on that we required. Did we?
Chair, my memory was it wasn't part of the move, but it should be included, yes.
So can I just move that we do put the standard conditions onto that application, which I apologise for that, let go through without us doing that. Can we all, hands up for agreeing those conditions should be imposed? Thank you very much, and I apologise for having let that slip. Thank you. Can I declare this minute closed and this meeting closed, and thank you all very much for your continued attention and help. Thank you.